Coming up on this episode,
we talk about TV shows, the BETT Show, survey by Kindred Square, parenting, language, and why Matt argues with ChatGPT.
I'm Matt Morris.
I'm Sarah Johnson.
And we have
nothing to bring.
I'm not sure that's getting better, but we'll try anyway.
We could never be a chorus in like a Greek tragedy.
Or in anything. I mean,
in anything.
Yeah. It's keeping it together is not our forte.
No.
Hence, nothing to bring. I think it's said so in the title. Should we talk homework? Because in the last podcast, we set homework for each other, didn't we?
And I did my homework.
As did I.
Yeah. No, you barely did your homework. You've watched one episode. But let's remind people, I set you the homework of watching Deadwood.
You did.
Did you watch it?
Yes. So
how many episodes?
Just the one. But can I be clear? You set me the homework of watching Deadwood. It wasn't predicated on the idea where I had to watch so many episodes. We just watched Deadwood and see what you think.
I should have been more precise.
Okay. Now, I set you the task of watching Nobody Wants This. Nobody Wants This. There's sort of like 25-minute. You could have watched 3 of those.
I have watched 3.
There you go. In the same time as the first episode of Deadwood, which, by the way, is behind a paywall. And I had to buy the first. I didn't mind because I did enjoy it. So, yeah, I did enjoy it. So it was behind a paywall. I thought, I'll go and watch it because I've seen that on one of the many streaming platforms that we have in our household. And it's not on any of them. It's actually on one we don't have. So I bought it. It was about £2. No, it was about £2.50. Not a problem. And yeah, I really enjoyed it actually.
Good, isn't it? Ian McShane is phenomenal in it.
Well, here's the thing, you see. That's the thing that I was a bit tentative about because what is the really old Ian McShane British TV programme that kind of launched him on... Yeah. I'm not sure it launched him, but it was the thing that we all...
it's the thing that we know as British. Yeah, Lovejoy.
Yeah, okay.
Have you seen him in American Gods?
Actually, yeah, I think I have seen a bit of that.
Well, he's great. He's great in American Gods as well.
I think I had a kind of Lovejoy in the back of my head, and I'm glad I sort of passed that because he is brilliant. And it's also got Timothy Olyphant in it.
I love Timothy Olyphant.
I always want to say elephant, but I think he's great. I think he's great in everything.
If Timothy's watching, then...
which I'm sure he is.
Which I'm sure he is. I will run away with you. So, yeah, just to let him know that.
Okay. But he's also fantastic. In fact, I was surprised at sort of the depth of quality of the cast. It's got a lot of people in it that I recognised, and I was sort of flicking backwards and forwards and thinking, I know them. Why do I know them? What have I seen them in? It's got some so it's got, although there's not much of her in the first episode, I suspect she's going to become quite important later. It's also got Molly Parker, who is really, really famous. And more recently, I've watched her in the reboot of Lost in Space. And it just people who... Oh, and Jim Beaver, who... Now, I don't know if you know who Jim Beaver is.
No.
I think the character was called Whitney. And Jim Beaver, he's the old guy, a bit gruff. He's kind of a bit down on his luck at the start of this episode. Yeah. He's only in it a couple of times. Jim Beaver is one of the central characters in Supernatural, which is another one of...
I've not seen Supernatural.
No, again, I think that's one I might set you from homework.
Well, you have to wait until I finish my current homework to set me future homework.
Okay. I didn't know if the homework continues, if like you just have to watch the whole thing, if that's the idea.
You have to watch the whole series. Yeah, so you've got 3 seasons in which to watch.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Which you'll have to pay
You've got 3 series to pay for and watch. Yeah, but Nobody Who Wants This is quite short. There's 2 series.
Yeah, so I did my homework, and the pilot was brilliant. And I romped through episode 2 and episode 3 as well. Really, really enjoyed it. It was a really interesting premise. But what I liked about it, for those who care and who are listening, it's a rabbi who starts to fall in love or engage in a relationship on very early stages with a non-Jewish woman. And what I like about it, being a Jewish woman myself, is some of the Yiddish as well that comes through. I really enjoyed it. And part of me thought, my grandmother would love this, but my grandmother's not around, so she won't be able to watch it. But yeah, it was really good. Really enjoyed it. And I instantly recommended it to some of my D&D friends. I was like, you got to watch this. And they ignored me.
And that's why I suggested it to you.
No, it was really good.
Not because again, I've picked a genre there, which isn't instantly a go-to for you, which is it's a romantic comedy of sorts. It's more comedy, I say, than romantic comedy.
Oh, but it's the really romantic bits, though.
There are.
So there's a bit where he kisses her, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, that's so romantic. It was lovely. So I'm in love with him now as well, actually. So maybe if Timothy Olyphant isn't around, then maybe that fella is. I can't remember what his
Fella.
name is. That fella.
Adam something, plays Noah. Okay, so who is your favourite character in Nobody Wants This?
The rabbi.
So it's Noah is your favourite character.
I think he's
My
lovely.
favourite character is Sasha, who is his brother, who is played by Timothy Simons, who is just brilliant in everything. But the other thing that he's absolutely superb in is the American comedy Veep.
I haven't seen that.
Veep is a sort of American, it's semi-remake of The Thick of It. So The Thick of It, which is the Armando Iannucci program about a fictional department within the government, which is one of the most hilarious British TV comedies ever made.
Amazing series. Amazing.
And quite offensive. And it has my favourite TV character of all time, which is Malcolm Tucker, played by Peter Capaldi.
Brilliant, Malcolm Tucker.
It's superb.
Brilliant.
And Veep is again, that's Iannucci, but it's sort of an American port of that. Although it stands on its own feet, it's not a kind of direct representation. It's got its own thing and actually goes on much longer for more series as well. Timothy Simons is in that, and he is just superb. He's a bumbling idiot, but he's just the funniest character.
I'm just checking your comedy credentials because it's quite important to me. Have you seen The Day Today?
Yes.
Good. Okay, fine. Have you seen Brass Eye?
Yes.
Good. That's fine. I don't need to set you additional homework.
The Brass Eye episode, which is all about...
One?
It's the one that's all about...
We can't talk about that.
No, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get us blocked on other sorts of streaming sites.
I know which episode you're talking about, yes, which is particularly contentious.
Yeah, and it's one of the most complained about TV episodes of all time. So if you don't know what we're talking about, go and have a look at Brass Eye.
Yeah, go and look. So we're going to set homework for our 50, 60, 70, sometimes 500 viewers, which I think is pretty good going. We'd like you to watch The Day Today and Brass Eye. And Veep, but I've not seen that, so I can't engage in conversation about it.
Veep probably needs a bit more of a... the loads of series, so you probably need a little... you need to invest a little. Okay. As I think I probably have to do with
hopefully
Deadwood,
not financially invested like you had to for...
no, I think you'll find... Well, it was on Sky Atlantic, I think, or certainly on Sky, so it'll be there on sort of box sets, I would imagine. But yeah, really good. And if you've not seen The Thick of It, you are missing out on possibly one of the greatest TV comedies of all time.
I wonder if I should watch it before I have meetings with ministers or the Department for Education, just to kind of get me that sense of feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
So apart from our homework, what else have you been up to this week, Matt? Because we've seen each other. You're a real life person.
Well, yeah, you exist. And we saw each other with these hoodies and our faces on them, didn't we? Yeah,
we did.
We went to BETT, which, as education colleagues will know, is like the EdTech capital conference.
It's overwhelmingly big.
It is, and it's grown. So I used to go every year, like 20 years ago, and it was...
What, where they had like dial-up?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think what you've tried to do there is you tried to make a joke about my age, but forgot I actually framed it within the idea of 20 years rather than when I was of a certain age. So whilst in your head the joke landed, I think, you need to rethink that.
Fine. We'll see what the listeners say. If they say I'm hilarious and that I should swap jobs and be a comedian, then we'll go from there.
Well, we'll have a look. So we went to BETT, big EdTech event, which takes place in London every year. And now they've got versions of it all around the world as well. And I think there's a new one coming in America next year as well, which they were really heavily advertising this time. Is it much different to the past? I'd say that whilst it's grown since I first came to, 20 years ago, I did go last year as well, and there's been a real shift, I think. So last year, big on AI, as you would expect, big on robots, as it was again this year. So it didn't feel like there was... Yeah, it didn't feel like there was much new this year.
It was sort of divided into different sections, isn't it? So you've got the management information systems. You've got some of the kind of funky Canva and other kind of websites. Trying to think what else. They had hardware as well. You know what? I got really distracted in the hardware section because there was a little massage stall. So I got a massage.
I saw two different massage companies, actually. I tell you what I saw last year, which I think it missed this year, because it brought a lot of excitement last year, and it brought young people to the event. So children can come to this. Often school groups are brought to this. It's one of those things where sometimes if you're looking to invest in some technology and you bring your school council to it and they can look at things that they can invest in for the school. But what they had last year, which I thought was superb, was they had a big esports arena and they had children from schools competing live in this esports arena. In fact, they had like a mini setup and then a large one. Now, whilst they had some esports rigs there, so they had companies who built rigs and sold them to, well, not just schools. There was no fanfare to it. There wasn't this big arena, which was great fun last year. And seeing these young people compete was fantastic.
The Pru that I go to, alternative provision, I go to in Isle of Wight with Andrew as the head teacher, has a whole e-sport suite. And he's very keen on that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm going to visit him in April. I think we've scheduled it for today for school improvement work. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing the e-sport. I think I'd like, but it's other things as well. It's coding and gaming. It's whole intensive kind of digital literacy, I suppose. I don't know as much as I should know about it, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. And maybe I'll meet some kids at some games.
Yeah, and one of the things that was really apparent this time was a lot of sort of the gamification of coding or coding with and then robots. It didn't feel new, it's not felt new to me for a long time. It's the sort of stuff that you could have done in some of the Lego education stuff that existed years ago. So none of that's kind of new, but there were some new takes on some of the things you could build. And in particular in the global celebration bit. So on one side, in one hall, you have the more general companies. And then in the other hall, you have a bit of a global showcase where you have lots of different countries with their tech and also their way in investing in schools and technology in schools. So, and they had some different things.
Kazakhstan was heavily represented, wasn't it? And I met my colleague, Yomek, that I work with in Kazakhstan. And I'm going to Kazakhstan, I think again in March or April, where I'll be talking about AI in education at a congress, which I'm quite looking forward to. Yeah.
So it's always good to go to Tibet.
Yeah, it's really good. And also it's really nice to see people.
Yeah.
So I did a panel and I kind of convened a group of people to talk about AI in AP. And that I think landed very well. So that was good. That was good, but overwhelming. I just went for one day. I didn't go back and get hats for my kids from the stall, because I wanted to get some swag. But I did get capes for each of my children. So
yeah, I got a cape, but I did get some really nice beanie hats as well.
Yeah, I did like the beanie hats. I had a meeting. So what else I did on the Friday? So we went to BETT on the Thursday. On Friday, I had a meeting with the International Forums of Inclusive Practitioners at the Google offices. And we went to go and see some of their accessibility resources and tools, as well as had a meeting there. And that was really interesting to see what Google are doing to help around disability. So, you know, your eye gaze technology, but also technology that can read sign language, which was fascinating. But presumably they'll be able to reverse engineer that to have sign language into text and text into sign language potentially.
And I think that's the thing that was missing from BETT this year. So last year there was a send space, and it had a little send theatre. I know there was a send theatre.
Yeah, there was a send theatre, yeah.
But there was a really obvious kind of send area last year. Now, that was fairly limited last year, and I don't recall seeing that, and maybe I just missed it, but I don't recall seeing that in the same way this year. I certainly saw a couple of the companies that I saw last time. But not necessarily in a sort of send space. But I think that's what's missing from BETT. That, you know, you talked about eye gaze technology and some of these things, accessibility. That for me needs a bit of a platform within BETT, and it wasn't there.
I think you're right. It wasn't so obviously there. And you're right. There was a Send Theatre because that's where I got my award. So yeah, there was a Send Theatre. But yeah, it was just, I don't remember spotting any eye gaze or other resources that would help children with more profound and multiple learning disabilities. Maybe we didn't look hard enough, but you really did have a proper search around, didn't you?
Yeah, I did have a good couple of hours kind of properly going around it. I think last year I was involved in some things where I didn't spend as much time on the kind of the show floor, whereas this year I did a good 2-3 hours walking around both halls.
Well, maybe there was feedback we can give to BETT, just saying, you know, this would be of interest. And I think it's particularly of interest because obviously with your trust, you have a school for children with special needs and things like that. So it's something that you're more likely to be interested in. And just because I'm always fascinated by tech and disability because it can enhance people's lives so much that it's always worth looking at. Yeah,
And
I think that was
it seems an obvious marketplace to have it. Last time, I'm not sure it all made the cut from last time, but we did talk a little bit about boys and talking to your boys and misogyny. And then
Yes.
we saw an article about quite a number of children, boys, who'd been suspended from a school because of misogynistic behaviour.
Yes, we did see that article, didn't we? And we'd spoken about misogyny. And I think I sort of spoke about how one of my kind of work colleagues, so I'm editing a book, Questions on Behaviour, a guide for early careers teachers. And the format is a series of questions which people answer that an ECT might ask. And actually, Matt, you've kindly written me a submission about the role of trusts, I think, wasn't it? The role of trusts in behaviour. And Richard Clutterbuck has written, or is writing, I can't remember now, one on misogyny and on banter. And where does a line get crossed? And his view was that that girls gossip, boys banter. I wasn't so sure, but I'm interested to read. He's not quite written the piece yet, so I'm interested to read his piece and what the argument is. But it's interesting, isn't it, where certain behaviours are normalised or accepted for whatever reason, and we accept them. And I think it can start quite early on that, oh, he's just making fun of you because he likes you, rather than going, actually, that's not appropriate behaviour and we don't accept it. So it's interesting to see how that kind of moves up the scale. But also, if it is misogyny and it is, treating women with kind of disrespect, and obviously had the kind of Me Too movement that spilled into schools, that, how do we make sure that we have masculine and strong male role models for children to show that you can be a strong male role model without resorting to undermining women. So it was interesting because it was basically, it sounded like the boys were ruling the roost and were deeply rude to female members of staff, which was quite interesting, because if they're rude to staff, how rude are they going to be to their peers?
Yeah, and it didn't really go into a great deal of detail. I think what piqued the interests of us and other readers was that it was 19 boys all in one hit got suspended in one go because of what was kind of loosely described as this quite disrespectful behaviour towards women. So it just shows that there is a problem, and we talked about that problem a little bit last week, and we talked about strategies around violence towards women. We talked a tiny bit about Speak to Your Boys, the agenda of Speak to Your Boys, and how that's really important. And we also talked about how we need to do something not just for the future, but for the now, because again, those behaviours come from somewhere, and that's not to say that it's parents, and that's not to say that parents are at fault. It could be social media, it could be other forms of media. Although what we do know from studies into media in particular is that it's less likely that people replicate what they see in the media in terms of films, games, TV. However, what we don't have studies on is how people respond, react to social media, and how they change their views or opinions or the way they act as a result of the things they see. And we know that most people exist in an echo bubble because that's what algorithms do for you. They put you in a space where you're hearing the things that you believe in.
And we play with that algorithm, and we like and we comment and all those sorts of things because it drives traffic to the YouTube channels. We exploit it when we can. And it's interesting you mentioned, because actually we didn't say we were going to talk about this, but there's been a whole push towards the ban of social media for under 16s and tightening of rules around the use of mobile phones in schools, which I think is really interesting. And I wrote an article about it on my Substack. And I don't think that there's any issue nowadays, especially in secondary school, that doesn't end up on social media in some way. So it might not begin on social media, like the disagreements and the bullying or the derision between friends or non-friends, but it will end up on social media. Whether or not that's WhatsApp, that's Snapchat or whatever, there will be lots of things that kind of play into that field. And I think, I've got my 16-year-old, but I've also got my 4-year-old and my soon-to-be 3-year-old. I support a ban of phones, really. I think it's really nice for children to have a childhood and to have that space where they can enjoy learning rather than feeling beholden to a mobile phone. Clearly, I'm going to caveat that with children that might have attachment issues with their parents, children that might need to monitor their blood blood sugar levels, blood glucose levels, diabetes, all those sorts of things. Of course, not a problem. But for the main part, it's too much. It's too much for us as adults. It's too much for children.
Probably, I probably have a much healthier relationship with social media now than I ever did in the past. In the past, it was very much something I go to a lot. I would form beliefs, not political or opinion, but more kind of, oh, that's the way life should be. Isn't that great? Why isn't my life that way? That's the problem. It creates false narratives. But I have a much healthier relationship. I can come away from social media and not use it. So, for example, when Twitter became X and X became, for me, became something that I would choose not to use that often because it started to go down into values that I didn't believe in. I moved away from it, and I've never gone back, and I don't regret that decision. And I think it's really hard for young people to move away from this form of communication, which for some of them, that's how they have grown up. We didn't grow up that way.
No, if you couldn't meet your friend at the park, then you would still have to go in order to tell them.
Yeah, exactly.
Or your friends would be really narked with you. I don't have such a healthy relationship with social media, so I use it a lot as a platform to drive my work. And I present, I don't present all the difficult and challenges that I have. I try and paint a fairly positive picture because I want people to ask my consultancy and to say that, I've had an awful day and this didn't go right, doesn't really drive people to want to employ you. So I paint a particular picture. So I'm often on it for work, but I tend to mute a lot of words and things like that on X so that I don't see certain things because it became overwhelming and it was just too much. And I had to rule that I would only look at the news once a day. As well, because I was just looking at the news continually. In the past, you would just switch on the 6 o'clock news, wouldn't you? Or you'd buy a newspaper. Now is that oversaturation, and it's ubiquitous. And sometimes having that space. So I've become better with the news because that was overwhelming. But I've also used it to my benefit in lots of different ways.
Yeah, rolling news, where we've got 24-hour news cycles.
Too much.
The problem we have with that is that news is being created for the sake of creating news. And there's a very famous story of when you got news through your radio. And I think I'm going to absolutely get this all wrong, so I'm quite happy to be slaughtered for it. But in the ago, there's a story of on a particular day in history, the newsreader coming on and saying that today there is no news, because news was about you and your community and about your country. And now we live in a global society because of the way that media is expanded, rolling news is rolled out, social media. We know what's going on or we think we know what's going on in other countries, because let's not get into kind of debates about things being propaganda or the way that things are presented to us in the way that they are to other countries as well. But we live in a completely different society now to what you and I grew up in, or at the advent of radio and then television. So the counter argument, though, to the phones in schools thing is that phones can be a device, if used correctly, to support learning. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think you have to control it really carefully. But at the same time, I've seen how mobile phones can really, really affect learning, the day, children's moods. And obviously, I've worked in certain environments where we just had to collect phones in at the start of the day and distribute them back out at the end of the day, because if you didn't do that, there was too much interaction on them. And part of the issue is this idea that you said earlier on, if in the past, if you were supposed to meet your friends at the park, you'd have to go to the park and tell them, sorry, I can't meet you. It was the same with phones. If your parent needed to contact you, they phoned the school. If I need to contact the school about my child, actually, it's the school I want to talk to, because perhaps I've got to come and get my child. I'm not going to message my child to say I'm coming to get you for whatever reason.
I mean, there's definitely parents that do that, where they'll message. And also, my daughter will message me directly and say, Mum, can you pick me up from school? No, you need to go to and I'll tell you, you need to go to the office if you're too unwell. I'm not just going to pick you up from school. That's not how it works. And that's a child with those difficulties and challenges around school and that emotional-based school avoidance. So for me, the kind of rules that she has at school, she rarely texts me now, if at all. Or if she does text me, it's Mum, can you help me with this sociology question or something like that? So it's a lot better. But she's only allowed to use her phone at very specific times during the school day. Otherwise, it's taken off her. And that gives me a bit of freedom, to be honest, because otherwise I'm always on her beck and call, and that's not ideal.
Yeah, it's about healthy relationships between those
It's
people you
hard.
communicate with.
And it's
You
hard.
had, yeah,
I know it's hard.
it is. You had something else educational you were going to pick up today.
So there was a news article based on research done by Kindred Square, where they surveyed 1,000 teachers and 1,000 parents. The teachers were reception teachers and the parents were parents of reception-aged children. And it was about school readiness. And school readiness is things such as toilet training, holding a pencil, eating their lunch independently, and regulating their emotions. And it was an interesting article that were coming out saying, essentially, there was a disconnect between parents' perspectives. So parents felt generally quite confident that their children were ready for school, whereas on the other hand, teachers didn't feel that children were particularly ready for school. And their sense was that there was around about 2.4 hours per day was spent on supporting children with those basic skills. So even things like children feeding themselves. So, using a knife and fork, for example, it was particularly stark in the northeast. So there was quite obvious geographical differences. It was interesting talking about the expectations. So perhaps previously the expectations was that parents would toilet train their children, but now there was more of a sense that schools will handle this because they're the experts, which was quite interesting. So yeah, there was that perception gap between parents and teachers. Was there kind of a misplaced respect, thinking teachers are better at doing it, so let's leave it to the experts? And there was this sense of this impact on the whole school ecosystem, because if you're concentrating on the basic skills, then you don't necessarily have the time in which to be doing the other things around teaching children, like phonics, for example. And the idea was that children who weren't presenting as being school ready really struggled to catch up for their good level of development. There was a discrepancy as well with boys and girls. Boys were more behind girls in terms of communication and their independence. So I suppose that's the what. The why, well, we could say that parents are lazy and they're not teaching their children basic skills. And I'm going to say this quite clearly as a parent of 4-year-old twins and a 3-year-old. I really struggled to potty train my 4-year-olds for various different reasons. And a nursery were incredibly supportive. But I had in my mind, I must toilet train my children before they go to school. And it was really incredibly difficult, really, really difficult, because they have underlying health needs as well. But there was also that challenge that actually it's not so much about parents being lazy, but parents are more squeezed in terms of their time. So their work responsibilities, making it really, really difficult to be present as a parent. It was a really interesting article, and I think interesting survey. I think the articles that came out felt a bit parent blamey, whereas I think the survey was more neutral and more nuanced in its thinking. Yeah. But I suppose you've got boys as well, and I've got girls. So did you find that your boys were sort of more behind when they went to school? You're a bit further down the line, or do you feel actually they had were they able to eat and drink independently? Were they toilet trained, for example?
It's not the same situation as you have, where you have got those underlying needs for your children. They were toilet trained, they were able to do things independently, feed themselves. But when we went to the school for the open evening for the school, or the open afternoon, whatever it was, there was a list given to us by the school of like 20 things we expect your children to be able to do by the time they came to us. And that included things not just in terms of toilet training, but things like the sort of pincer grip on a pen or a pencil.
Yeah, holding the pencils, it seems to be quite an important thing. That's a developmental thing, though, how you hold a pencil.
It is. I do worry with the idea that teachers as the experts in this case, teachers currently are the world police. They have to do absolutely everything in schools. And any time a new initiative comes along, the thought is, well, let's make that a teacher's responsibility as well. And I'm not of the view that is the job of a teacher to prepare.
No, it's the job of a parent. I think, as I said, I really struggled with potty training my twins. I would have been mortified, I think, even if they have additional need, if they went to school and they weren't potty trained. And so now my next step is them dressing and undressing themselves. So, and again, that's a challenge in itself. That's, it's quite difficult. And the girls have additional difficulties because standing on one leg can be really hard. So they've got to sit down and take their trousers off and things, but they're becoming better at it. And I was thinking today, the next stage is doing up buttons and doing their zips up. But it's that process. I suppose I've already done it with my 16-year-old, but now I've got 3 children that I'm trying to coordinate and make sure they're ready for school, and they've all got competing demands. And that's quite hard. The other bit is around self-regulation. Now, I know that A, in particular, finds it very difficult to self-regulate or co-regulate. And I will send you a video later, Matt, of A reading about the colour monster, which explores the different feelings that you have. And she knows that in order to be calm, I need to breathe. And I said, what does that sound like? And she takes a big breath. But when she's in that moment, when she's shouting at me because I have the audacity to not let her wear a bluey mask to bed, you know, she can't
Such an
get those
unreasonable
stores.
parent.
I'm a
Yeah.
terrible parent. Sometimes I don't let them keep on eating, and I say no more food.
Yes.
Or sometimes I say you're only allowed water at bed and you're not allowed orange juice or blackcurrant juice. I truly am a horrendous mother. And, you know, again, I say this a lot. I've got all the resources in the world and I've struggled to make sure that my children are school ready. And I'm meant to be an expert in behaviour and social, emotional, mental health. It's a lot more complicated than that. It's not just something you read from a textbook.
It's not about parent blaming or shaming. And we've said that there. Actually, it's about what progress can you make? Because it will be different for every parent and for every child. And you've just highlighted that there, that with resources, it's still a challenge for your, you know, your children. You can at least try to make the steps and make the progress. And nurseries are very, very good at supporting.
I love my
get
children's nursery.
Yeah.
They're
And I think having a good nursery is really important. But again, nursery isn't for everybody, and nursery isn't necessarily something everybody has to rely on either.
Some people, I mean, for me, nursery makes sense because of my work commitments and the hours that they can be there. And I think what's really lovely about the nursery is it's parents as a community. So when I was taking A, I and Z out from nursery today, Z and A took it in turns to throw themselves on the floor. So one would throw themselves on the floor in anger, they would stand up, and then the next one would throw themselves on the floor. But people are really nice. Like, I think they get it. They get the fact that it's, you know, next week it might be them. And sometimes my children are really well behaved, but sometimes it's just really difficult for them for lots and lots of reasons. But what makes it okay is not feeling judged as a parent. And I think as soon as you start judging parents, you've kind of lost, really, because no one wants to be judged and you don't win anyone's hearts being judged, do you? Whereas I think with what you know, if I was given a sheet of paper with the 20 things my child should do, then I'd probably work through it. But I suppose my worry would be, oh, I've only got 19 out of 20. What's the teacher going to think of me? So I would worry about being seen as not a great mum.
And there's a fear there of, you know, just mentioned parent shame, and there is a fear of being shamed by the school when, in fact, as educators, we know it's a challenge and we know we have to support families to get it right. I work with a couple of primary schools who have children who come to a primary school and they're not yet toilet trained. And our staff work really, really closely with the family and those young people to get them to a position where they are.
Yeah, and I mean, we've spoken before about teacher retention and things like that. And actually, the survey also spoke about increased stress and turnover and staff feeling burnt out, because I suppose they've got competing demands, that you've got the national curriculum in which you're meant to be delivering, but you also want to make sure that children are, in inverted commas, school ready. I think we also have to remember that the UK has a very particular approach around the age that children start. So 4 years old, for example. 4 is still young, still incredibly young, whereas some nations might start a lot later. So their ability to be school ready is elongated by virtue of when they start schools in the first place. You know, there's another bit where actually should schools be children ready in whatever way they come as well. So there's probably a bit more work to be done, I think, from that perspective. But
that's a really interesting argument, because in Europe, quite a lot of European countries, it's around 6 or 7 that children start school. What would school ready look? Oh, sorry, what would children ready look like in a school?
I suppose you have it in lots of primary schools do it, but it's continuous provision, isn't it? It's child-led. And my daughter's nursery, and they go to Busy Bees, and they talk about invitation to learn. So I use that phrase as well, invitation to learn. And the idea being that you just have resources and it's child-led. And however they might want to use the pens, the paper, the animals, or whatever it might be, it's an invitation to learn. And I suppose it's that kind of freedom for children to do things led by them. I think if it was truly child-led, I think my children would just watch Paw Patrol, maybe Transformers.
So one of the things we have never talked about yet on this podcast, and it's right up there in my geeky list, is theme parks. Because as you know, I'm a big theme park nerd. What I can say for you is Paw Patrol Land is opening at Chessington World of Adventures.
I'm going to have to go, aren't I?
You are going to have to go in the
Well, you
same
can
way that
come with
I
that.
had to go. I will come with you, absolutely.
Yeah, come with.
I love Chessington, actually, is a fantastic theme park for children.
I haven't been since I was a child.
Yeah, so I went when it was not long out of Chessington Zoo.
Yes.
And there's still quite a large area of the park is still dedicated to the zoo, as well as to other things. If you're a big fan of the Julia Donaldson books,
Yes.
you've got the Room on the Broom attraction, which is a walkthrough attraction.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Gruffalo River attraction, which was the old Professor Burp's Bubble Works.
I used to love Bubble Works.
Yeah, so the Bubble
Works.
Works.
That's my favourite ride.
So imagine Bubble Works with some of the same bits of Bubble Works are still there. So it's that same round barrel ride on the water. And if you remember at the very end, you dropped into an area where you had water shooting over your head. That's all still there, but it's all now completely themed, transformed actually into the Gruffalo.
Let's do it either Easter holidays or summer holidays.
I'll meet you there.
Yeah, let's do it. You can have Zed. She's the most challenging.
So I'm going just to look after the children.
I mean, we can have fun as well.
No, I'd have a great time.
I'll give you the children and I'll disappear off and go to sleep somewhere.
You can go into the hotel. They've got a hotel there. You can.
Yeah, I'll have a little snooze. That sounds brilliant.
But it's, so what they've done is they've taken a sort of an underused part of the park, which includes the little petting zoo, which was all right. It was sort of run down a little and it did need a big old makeover. In fact, they've bulldozed quite a large area of that park which is a bit disjointed, and that's where they're building Adventure Bay.
Brilliant.
So there will be some rides, and there will also be a large version of the Paw Patrol headquarters.
Amazing.
Which will have a big slide going around it.
So the invitation to learn will be Paw Patrol watching it on TV and Paw Patrol Land.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen most episodes of Paw Patrol up to a point. At one point we had like hundreds and hundreds of episodes of Paw Patrol recorded onto our Skybox that we just had to delete because we couldn't watch anything else.
No, it's just tedious as well. I'm sure Paw Patrol's great, but I don't need to watch any more of it.
Are you suggesting you don't buy into the idea that a small boy has that much money to build a high-tech kind of mega rescue service that's staffed by puppies that talk? I mean,
I do like the fact that it's staffed by puppies. That's important. And I think there's like offshoots where it's cats. Yeah, it's great. But
the cats are the bad guys.
Are they the bad guys?
The cats are the bad guys, yeah. I think, right, hold on, this is where I'm going to show. I think they're called the Kitty Catastrophe Crew.
I mean, that sounds legit. They're going to be called that, aren't they, because of the...
Yeah, that shows my working knowledge of Paw Patrol as well. But yeah, that's, your girls are going to love that. They will absolutely love that. And there's other things other things in there as well, which, right, that's a date.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. The other thing, so this week, we talked about things we've done this week. This week, I just want to pick up that I got into an argument with ChatGPT and won.
Were you wrong, though?
No, I was right.
What was you saying? Why were you getting into arguments?
I don't want to get into the detail of it, but essentially, I had an argument with ChatGPT about the use of an historic or a historic. So, as an English teacher, I'd always teach an historic. That is standard English, right? So, and historic is standard English. However, what has happened in more contemporary times is, particularly in journalism, and it's more to do with pronunciation, there has been a bit of a move towards ahistoric.
Yeah, it's easier to say.
Well, there was a BBC article that referred to ahistoric. So I threw it into ChatGPT and I said, is this incorrect? And it said, no, it's correct. And I said, should it not be anhistoric? And it said, no. And it started to imply that anhistoric was not correct anymore or was dated. So we got into a bit of an argument around that, to the extent that ChatGTP effectively contradicted itself.
Brilliant.
Because what it tried to argue was
it does things like, oh, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. But what it did was it suggested that, now, I don't disagree with the idea that both are correct, but they're correct in their own way, right? My argument was, what is standard English and what isn't? I have a real issue with language being kind of bastardized, or just the lazy use of language leads to its change. It's right that language should change. Language should change over time to reflect, but I don't like lazy change.
Sometimes I think it should be against the law for decimate to not mean 1 in 10, because it comes from the Roman army killing 1 in 10.
Mm-hmm.
But people use it to mean destroy. It doesn't mean destroy. It means you destroy 1 in 10 things. That should be against the law. That's what it means. That's where it's come from. No.
It's
stop.
like the misuse of owing to and due to as well. People start sentences with due to when they should say owing to.
Owing to. Okay, yeah, fine. I've never noticed that, but yeah, that's cool. And the other bit is literally when they mean metaphorically. No, it's literal. That's what it means. Don't get it wrong.
Yeah. If we're going to look at other language issues, we have to take issue with Strictly Come Dancing when they refer to their leaderboard. It's not a leaderboard, it's a scoreboard. A leaderboard is the top people. So in golf, on a golf course, you often see the leaderboard. It's those who are at the top of the scoreboard is on the leaderboard.
I've never seen Strictly Dancing. So
I don't watch it anymore. We would have watched the first few series of it. But on Strictly Come Dancing, they refer to a scoreboard as a leaderboard. If it's got all the scores on it, it's a scoreboard. It's only the leaderboard if it's the leaders. And it really annoys me.
Yeah,
that just sounds like I'm being...
But I agree with you.
Yeah, I just sound like I'm old and grumpy now, though, aren't I? Anyway, back to ChatGPT. I effectively got it to accept that it had contradicted itself in that it argued that it's okay that journalism has changed ahistoric to ahistoric because that happens. But it then argued that for something to be standard English, it can't just be a change that takes place within years. It has to be embedded over decades. But it had already argued the opposite. So it contradicted itself. So at the end... Once it had contradicted itself, it then sort of got to the end. Now, when you use ChatGPT and other sorts of AI, what they often do at the end of a response, they say, "Would you like me to do anything else now? Would you like me to format it in this?" So after it had contradicted itself and then said, "You're right, I did contradict myself," I then put into ChatGPT, "Is there anything else I can do for you today?" To which it simply replied, "Touche." And at that point, the conversation ended. I felt like I'd won. There was nobody around me to chit, because we're talking like late at night, bored. I was doing that instead of doom scrolling. I have no idea what I got into it. For some reason, I found that humorous. And it's like, high five me, someone. No one here. The other thing, you know that I quite like a boot fair or a charity shop, and I do pick up random things from boot fairs and charity shops. And one of the things I was really pleased with this week was a brand new board game for £2.50, which I think is apt, and it's called Geek Battle.
Bum, bum, bum.
And throw the board away because we've got cards and questions. And so the categories are in... Right, I have to do this. I have to out myself on this podcast now.
All right, you got your glasses on?
Because I'm old and...
Yep, you can now read. Hold on.
I realise I can actually see things with these on, so I can read my phone. So I've got, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here.
Okay, I'm not going to be,
so you've got
rubbish.
Categories. Your categories are sci-fi and fantasy, comics and video games, science and technology, or geek life.
Probably science and fantasy. I'm going to be sci-fi and fantasy. I'm going to be awful at this.
Okay. Oh, no. All right. The first one up, you're not. Oh, there's a couple of Lord of the Rings ones.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm going to do 2 here. What is the name of the dragon in The Hobbit?
Smaug.
Correct. What is Indiana Jones a doctor of?
Is it just archaeology?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, those seem quite straightforward. Okay, let's see if there's any difficult ones. Oh, here we go. Star Trek one for you. A probe threatens Earth.
Sorry, just to say, people get really angry when I talk about Star Trek. So let's see how me not getting the answer right will just help our Star Trek fans.
So a probe threatens Earth in Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, because the only thing that can respond to it no longer exists. What does the Enterprise travel back in time to fetch?
Whales.
A bald eagle, B, dinosaur, C, humpback whale, D, mastodon. Don't even need to look at the answer there, do you? Okay. Oh, Firefly one. Interesting.
Haven't seen Firefly for about 20 years.
Now, I know the answer to this without looking. So, inspired by the uniforms Mal and Zoe wear during the war against the Alliance, what nickname is used to describe Firefly fans? I'll give you the options. Is it red legs, brown coats, purple bellies, or black masks?
I don't know.
Pretty sure it's brown coats. It is brown coats, yeah.
Yeah, I
Because
wouldn't know that one.
they wear long brown coats, don't they? It's part of the kind of the rebellion that they're in. That's part of the
Yeah, I
uniform.
do. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't remember that.
Okay. Do you want any more? Different category?
One more.
Go on then. Okay, here's one. I'm going to give you a geek life one. I don't know if you know this. In the cartoon, the Ren and Stimpy show.
Hate Ren and Stimpy. Carry on.
Okay, Stimpy is a cat. What the heck is Ren? That is the question, by the way. What the heck is Ren? A rat. B, a cat. C, a dog. D, a lizard.
I think he's a dog.
Dog. Yeah, I've never really watched Ren and Stimpy.
I don't like the illustrations.
No,
find
that
them-
was that kind of. It was a kind of an MTV era.
I'm not a fan of it.
Not, yeah.
All of that. I don't like the style. Thank you so much for everybody that's been listening to us. We really value your time. If you could like and subscribe, we'll be ever so grateful.
Follow us on whatever platforms we're on. All the links are down below in the show comments down below.
Thank you for all of our affiliates. Affiliates? I can't say affiliates.
Affiliates. Yeah. Thank you to everybody who has provided us with the means to bring you this invitation to learn.
Thank you
Was
so
that
much.
right?
We really do appreciate it. Yeah, invitation to learn.
So from us, I'm Matt Morris.
I'm Sarah Johnson.
We have
We
nothing
have nothing to bring.
to bring.